This week on the LiftKit Marketing Podcast, we sit down with AJ Kumar, the founder of Limitless Company and author of Guru Inc. AJ has spent 15 plus years helping founders and CEOs turn what they know into authority, audience growth, and real revenue. He's co-founded the agency Single Grain. He helped build a global wellness brand to over 10 million in revenue, and today works with clients like Neil Patel to build personal media companies. In this episode, AJ breaks down his Guru Ladder framework, explains why YouTube is becoming the new Hollywood, and shares why the smartest use of AI might not have anything to do with content creation. If you ever wondered how to stop being your industry's best kept secret, this episode's for you. Let's get into it. I was just reading through some LinkedIn posts, picked up on Dave Gerhardt's recent post, something about measuring or doing a survey with like 100 plus CMOs and just kind of what they're focused on. Obviously, you know, there's no surprises when like AI is like on everyone's mind. I don't know. Did you see that post?
Yeah. Something that stood out to me was just that people are, I think a lot of the conversations that we're having are the same as what this post was saying. And so something that stood out to me was grow more, spend less, and prove that marketing did it. That is the key word there. Like that's the demand right now on marketers is looking for this silver bullet. And there's more pressure to do more with less. And like he said, prove that you are the one bringing in all of the revenue. Dave is like B2B marketing, but on the e-commerce side, I'm seeing exactly the same thing. What about you?
Right. Yeah, no, same thing. In fact, that post reminded me a lot of our previous episode with Levi, where Levi Wart was talking a lot about AI is maybe in some cases adding more stress, more pressure to these marketing teams to do more because that's what the expectation is. And it's, are you layering in all these new tools and resources with the expectation that it's going to save you 4 hours a day, and then now you're expected to do more with that remaining 4 hours? And so everyone knows that AI should be a priority. It should be something that they're focusing on. They just don't know where or how, and then how to measure the results and tie it back to ROI. So this seems like just a really common thing right now. And I'm trying to spend more time in the AI transformation space to really understand what is the best way for an executive team to roll out, and manage the expectations around the use and the integration of AI, especially in a marketing department.
Yeah. And I would say not just AI, but also the traditional marketing too. I think this has always been the issue with marketers. It's just now amplified because executives are weighing, could we replace you with something more simple or automatic? And I think that we have a lot of good conversations in previous podcasts that help marketers understand how to navigate this. And I like to point out that this is why we started this podcast. Go back to episode 0. And, John and I, our goal is to lift up marketers. This is a real struggle. And I think understanding that you're not alone is really empowering. And so it's more about how do you communicate this effectively to leadership, that what a role of a marketer is.
Yeah. And how AI is impacting it, right? With AI, I think the first thing a marketer is thinking is like, oh, wow, I can do a lot more here in terms of my content production. I can automate a lot of this, and that's going to help me kind of, spend less time there so I can focus on strategy and focus on my business. And then now you're seeing AI slop, and you're seeing a lot of things, especially in certain platforms like LinkedIn. You're just like, hey, this person typically doesn't do a lot of content. And now there's a whole bunch, and it's like really generic, and you're like, what's going on here? So like, to your point, the podcast concept was like, this is us. We're human. We're not AI. I think there's going to be more value to podcasts with actual people expressing their interests and concerns and illustrating their authority and expertise in certain categories, which kind of leads me into our guest today. But I don't want to jump ahead if you've got more to say around Dave's post and our mission here with LiftKit Marketing.
No, let's get to it. I want to meet our guest.
So our guest today is someone that had the pleasure of working with when I was at NP Digital and helping Neil Patel with his executive visibility and his marketing as a thought leader and agency owner. AJ Kumar is who we've got on the show today. So AJ is the founder and the CEO of Limitless Company, which is a social media innovation studio that helps founders, CEOs turn expertise into authority, audience growth, and revenue. He's got over 15 years experience. He builds around performance, marketing, storytelling, and the creator economy. He began in sales before moving into digital marketing, and he helped co-found Single Grain, which if you know Eric Sue, that's his agency. He later helped build Beauty Detox with Kimberly Snyder, and that is now a global wellness brand that's scaling traffic to over 600,000 monthly visitors and generating over 10 million in revenue. He's also the author of Guru Inc., which is focused on turning expertise into influence and building personal brand authority in the age of AI. So welcome to the show.
Hey, y'all. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so nice to meet you. I I'm really excited to talk to you because I think that personal brand is something that everybody's interested in. What John and I were just talking about. I mean, I've seen so many posts on LinkedIn talking about how if you type something out, it's plagiarized. And so there's this call to more video and personal branding. But that's a huge leap for a lot of people. I mean, you have to have a lot of confidence and understand what you even are good at, which I think is a huge block for people. So excited to talk to you. Do you want to speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, I see that a lot. I think I read a stat recently that said something like half of the posts on LinkedIn is just like slop, right?
Yeah.
Like we're seeing slop all over the place. And video is definitely a differentiating factor because it's a lot harder to just slop it out. But, people like do that as well to some degree. So these are different skill sets, though. It's something like I work with a lot of people that are experts, very successful in their field, but then when you turn a camera on them, they become really insecure. They're running 7, 8, 9-figure businesses, but then once the camera's on, they're timid about, how they're presenting themselves. And it's normal and it's natural. I think it happens if you look at actors and actresses, it's a hard job. It takes
Yeah.
a lot of work because you're fine-tuning yourself, your body, your tonality, your expressions. And, we're a complicated instrument.
So AJ, let's start back at the beginning for your story. Like, where did you come from? How did you get into this? Start us at the beginning of your childhood or wherever you got this idea.
Yeah, of course. So I grew up in Cypress, California. Anytime I say just Cyprus, people think it's the other country of Cyprus, but no, Cypress, California. It's in North Orange County. And I grew up around like spiritual gurus, and they kind of planted these seeds early on into my mind. And as I grew up, when I went to high school, that's when I first met a guy you guys know is Neil Patel. I had a class with him, and that's when I first started getting a little bit into internet marketing. He was teaching me about eBay and selling things on eBay. And at that time, I was buying stuff from Fry's Electronics or CompUSA and getting these mail-in rebates and then repackaging it and selling it on eBay to make these profit. Neil got me to do some other stuff on eBay, started making a little bit of profit, but that's how I kind of got into the, hey, I want to make money online kind of thing. And I had this really successful cousin who was in the mortgage space. He had a Ferrari. And as I went through the motions of school, high school and then college, I was feeling that college wasn't a thing for me. I couldn't do it. I really had this like entrepreneurial like urge inside of me to like get out and do things. And by this time, I had disconnected from Neil because I only knew him in high school. I connected with him a little bit at college because we actually went to the same college. I dropped out of college. I got into sales. I started working at the Mike Ferry organization where my cousin was a coach. This is a real estate training company, and he was a coach teaching loan officers, and it was that company getting into loan officer coaching. And that's where I really started to work on personal development and mindset. And it really opened my mind up to tapping into myself in a way that allowed me to expand and become better. Personal development is like it's now a common thing, but at that time it was a relatively new thing. did some work with my cousin after the Mike Ferry organization. And this was around the recession time and things weren't working out. And then I was in a car accident. I got stuck being at home and I saw Neil, like a photo of Neil Patel some way, shape, or form. And I decided to reconnect with him. And he started teaching me about blogging. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. I didn't really understand what a blog is. And then he said, yeah, you just, take things that you're good at, like what you know about, and you could talk about it. I was like, okay, cool. I guess I know about sales. I guess I know about personal development and mindset. Maybe I could do something on that. And I bought a domain called persuasive.net because I really was into the art of persuasive communication, neurolinguistic programming, sales. And so I decided to blog about that. So I did that for a bit. Neil taught me SEO. He taught me how to set up a WordPress blog. And I got my blog to a point where it was like getting 30,000 visitors a month.
Wow.
There was one blog post where I started talking about Tony Robbins, and Tony Robbins like saw it and posted it on his Twitter. Like it was really cool to see that I was this kid in my room at my parents' house and like having all this like action happen. It was kind of bizarre, but it was cool. That's how I got into the swing of internet marketing.
That's awesome. I mean, not just lucky to know like Neil Patel. I mean, because I was thousands of miles away also engaging with Neil Patel's content. That's why John and I are here today too. And how we're connected is through Neil Patel. And it's so cool because I learned so much from him. But that was something he really instilled in people, was like, find something that you're good at, that you know, and what questions are people asking you, and go blog about that. That's really great, that because you took that initiative still and went with it, right? Like sometimes we're given these softball opportunities and we don't run with it.
Yeah, sometimes it's like there's like that saying, a bus comes and another bus comes. Like at some point, there's not gonna be any more buses that are gonna come, but it's like you have these opportunities that show up, but a lot of people just don't want to take the action to do it. And that's the most interesting thing I've always like observed, is that everyone has access to Google, everyone has access to things at their fingertips, but most people don't do it.
So AJ, before we move on from your backstory, is there anything else on that journey, some ups, downs, learning opportunities that you'd like to share? Because the next step is I want to hear more about what you're doing now.
Yeah. So like after I got into internet marketing, Neil introduced me to his cousin, Sujan Patel. And then Sujan and I started a business called Single Grain. And I had, packed my bags, moved up to San Francisco. That's where Sujan was located. That's where Single Grain was located. And I started doing sales for the company and a strategy for the company. And that's when I really got into the swing of working in digital marketing with all these enterprise clients. Now, my background was in copywriting. Before I even did Single Grain, I started doing copywriting gigs where Neil was introducing me to different people to create copy for them, sales copy. I didn't even really understand what the concept of it was at that time. I was just like, oh, I'm just writing content for these people. Like, it was weird. But I got into copywriting, sales, funnels, and things like that's kind of where my brain was going and gravitating towards. So did that work with Single Grain, got into like all of these enterprise marketing clients. I did that for a bit, for maybe like 2 years or so. And then at some point I started gravitating toward people, like personal brands instead of these corporate brands. And at that time I was introduced to a woman named Kimberly Snyder, who is a celebrity nutritionist. And she had a book and she was like, yeah, I need help with my like marketing. And she had this blog and all this stuff. And I saw an opportunity to really do something with her because I was so interested in health and wellness and nutrition. And again, it's like my desire to like work in a space where I'm really interested in the subject matter. And this was like 2011, 2012 or so. I decided to leave Single Grain, got bought out from that. And then I went full force with Kimberly, and we had a joint venture at that time called Beauty Detox. And it took Kimberly's blog from 30,000 visitors a month to 500,000 plus visitors a month. We converted all that traffic into email subscribers, leveraged the email subscribers to sell digital products, did a book launch that resulted in her becoming a New York Times bestselling author, and everything just like radically changed. And I started to get this new understanding, because at first it's like you see all this traffic, all this number, all this data. And then I started realizing like, these are real people. These are real like humans that are looking at this website, and more people are looking at their phones, or they're looking at on a desktop or a laptop. And that's when I had this like realization of like what I was doing, and I started expanding my mind and my vision. And that's where essentially where the idea of the Limitless Company started coming about. So I did that with Kimberly for a bit, got bought out, and then I had another joint venture that I did with a TV star, because at this time, this was 2015 or so, I realized that I wanted to do this. I kind of stumbled upon this business model of a personality-driven media company. And I was trying to model like an Oprah, an Ellen, a Martha Stewart, because that's what I grew up seeing, these personalities just becoming big like businesses, big brands. And that's essentially what I was trying to replicate. We didn't take Kimberly to be an Oprah or Martha Stewart per se, but it was like a mini version of that, right? Where it became like a 7-figure plus a year business. And then I did that with a TV star and helped him launch his personality-driven media company. And then in 2020, pandemic happened. I got bought out from the company with a TV star. And then I decided that instead of doing these joint ventures and building these companies for these clients, I wanted to build my own media company. I wanted to build a business that allowed me to work with more experts at the same time and build my own team. So I started a Limitless Company, and I had some really great partners that were part of that with me, and they helped me with creativity and operations. And we made lots of mistakes, because this was the time where the traditional media and new media were converging. And anytime things converge, there's like a lot of chaos, a lot of like turbulence that happens. And I think the pandemic represented that turbulence very accurately. And I was getting into going from like blogs and text to videos. And now, like, because I had that experience with that TV star and in the entertainment business, being in the rooms of NBC, or being having meetings with agents from William Morris, it got me all this insight into the entertainment business. And it led to the perfect place that I've always dreamt of being, where entertainment and marketing are combined. And now I'm in this position today where I get to work with really smart people that are doing something that I'm really interested in, and helping them communicate that through social media.
Can you share an example of like who you're working with?
Yeah. So Neil Patel is one of my clients. Like, that was really great for that to be a full circle, and helping him with his YouTube, his Instagram, his TikTok, all his entire social presence. Another client is a guy named Dr. Ben Lynch, who I'm also very excited about. He's a pioneer in genes, in understanding like what happens, how the environment or how food impacts your genes. He has a book called Dirty Genes, and super crazy smart guy. And it's really exciting to work with him, because he has so much research. He's so cutting edge. He knows so many things from like a decade plus ago that are now just becoming relevant, which in itself makes it a lot of fun. And we're particularly working on YouTube. YouTube is the biggest opportunity in the world, and it's of highest relevance to, I believe, everyone, including myself. And I've been really mastering the YouTube game over the last couple years, whether it's working with Neil and his YouTube presence, or Dr. Ben and his, and where I think YouTube is going is the new Hollywood.
Like, what do you mean by that?
Yeah.
It's like it's like the culmination of all of the things that I've had in my past, the sales training, the marketing, the entertainment. It's all of that combined into YouTube is now the #1 streaming app on television devices. And that started in the last year or so, that Nielsen started reporting that it gets more watch time than Disney or Paramount or Hulu, and more attention is there. And Hollywood in itself is in this place where they stopped funding projects in the same way because they're just so risk averse that they only want to do certain things, that a lot of the talent that wanted to work in Hollywood previously is now starting to realize that the real opportunity isn't in TV land, which has all of its gatekeepers and such. It's in the digital world. And YouTube is this platform that has so much market share on television devices, and everyone watches it on their phones and laptops, and that you could get discovered in ways that were never even imaginable before. So now more and more people are starting to create their own social first shows. And it's really exciting because you get so much data. Like I have this client, she's 84 years old. Her name is Nikki Haskell. And we really did a lot of fun with her with all of her short form content on Instagram and TikTok. And we have this format with her that works really well called Things I Know in My 80s That I Wish I Knew in My 20s. And it's this format that works so well. It drove millions of views. There was even a video that I think got 20 million views. She was she was on television like in the 80s. And it's just funny to see when she talks about what she sees on her Instagram analytics or her TikTok analytics. She's like, back in my day, like Nielsen had to give you these reports, and these reports are, they're inaccurate, or you don't have the full like scope of the data. But now I could see exactly who's watching, how old they are, where they're located. And I think we take that for granted because a lot of people didn't have access to that before. But that data is so valuable and so interesting because then it informs you and it allows you to become more successful.
The transition from TV land to YouTube is really interesting because you're even seeing it now where a former talk show host launches a podcast, and now they've got the opportunity to really own their audience and maybe even make more money. They've got this great following that they've built up over years through traditional linear TV, and now they launch a podcast and they've instantly got hundreds of thousands of subscribers and sponsorships, and they really get to control their own environment and create their own media company, if you will.
Yeah. They don't have that like middleman blocking them or controlling the ownership of their connection with the audience. And that's why we're seeing now more and more again. And kind of essentially the premise of my book is that you're building a media company around your personal brand, a personal media company, right? Disney, if you think about it, Disney today, we see this large corporation, but it was originally a one-man media company, Walt Disney, right? And he built this business around his expertise. He drew cartoons, and then television came about, and he leveraged that medium and got people to see it. And then ultimately that led to people coming to his physical, destinations where they got to touch it and feel it, right? Similarly, that's happening with the internet. The internet and the phones are working in that same capacity where you have your content and you put it on these social platforms and you get all this visibility and you increase the value of people being in your proximity. It's like the reason why if you're an expert, your goal is to be in a place where people are investing $30K, $50K, $100K to have you come speak at events because people like being in your proximity. People like being drawn to you. In my book, I call this the guru ladder, that any professional is moving up the ladder. The ladder starts with being a generalist in your space where, you're kind of the jack of all trades. And then you go up and you become the specialist in your field. And then the next level above that is the authority. But the problem with the authority is that people don't know you. And this is what we talked about in the beginning of the conversation, that now you realize that you need on-camera charisma. You need camera presence, you need body language skills, you need communication skills. You need to be able to package what it is that you do in a way that gets people interested in what you have to say. Because social media is entertainment first. So I always talk to clients and people about that. We're in the edutainment business, and edutainment in itself is a spectrum. So as you go from authority to the next level, which is the guru, it requires more entertainment value, right? This is that whole conversation that we talked about where you're developing the same skills that actors did in Hollywood. And the better you become, the more people follow you, the more people want to learn from you. And then eventually other gurus start to follow you and you become the guru's guru, right? And that's a really great place to be, because when you're in that place, you attract all these really wonderful, amazing opportunities. Like, you are what people want to learn from, be around.
And so
Yep.
on-camera presence, you feel like is the thing that really gets you there? Or do you feel like looking at Neil Patel? I mean, he is obviously extremely smart, and I've learned a lot from him. John's learned a lot from him. Like, I'm a huge fan, but is he a guru because of his on-camera personality, or because of like how he educated people on SEO?
I think all of that is a facet. Like, the on-camera presence are facets of the whole. Ultimately, it's about how you're packaging yourself in the marketplace and all the different places that you are. Because Neil can go into a lot of technical depth of what it is that he does. SEO is a very technical subject, but then if it's too technical, you don't get the same reach and visibility. So a lot of what he does really successfully, and what any guru does really successfully, is they package themselves in a way that allows more people to see them and understand them. Because the more people that you ultimately reach in your niche, or people that are interested in your niche, allows them to step into your world. And as they go into your world, they ascend through your different products and services. This is where they start to get more value, more technical, more advanced, right?
So some of the people you've mentioned, Neil included, they've been producing content for 20 plus years, educating people on things. They've got this foundation that's just inherent. And so that's, to me, that feels like, okay, they're ripe for this type of personal media brand, and they're well positioned for it. So now you've got, fast forward to today, where you've got AI tools that weren't necessarily available 3+ years ago. And you've got a lot of people entering the space thinking this is now their opportunity. So what is someone that's maybe only 5 years into their career, but they're thinking this is the path they want to go down, and maybe they own a business or own an agency, and they want to figure out how to position themselves better for growth through a personal brand, launching channels. Where do they start? What's your advice to them?
So you want to start with creating a content strategy. So you're taking like your world, your expertise, and you're breaking it into however that needs to be communicated, whether it's like pillars, topics. You do something strategically in that sense. And then ultimately you're going to be creating content, whether it's written content, it's video content, podcast content. You got to essentially package what it is that you're doing and post it consistently. The challenge that most people have has to do with the consistency part. And something I've learned from Neil time and time again, the consistency, it's like one of those things that you hear and you're like, oh yeah, that's dumb. Like, that's the key that you're giving me. But a lot of it has to do with you, not just you creating content, but you creating content in the right way. There's this saying that practice makes perfect. But one of my advisors taught me that practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So as you're creating content, you're getting insights from what's happening, whether it's working or not working, and you're learning from those insights, and you're now increasing the volume of what it is that you're doing. So it's not just doing it now, here, and again. It's doing it continuously at a very high level, especially now. And it's not just only doing it in one way. You got to do it in many ways. You got to do writing. You got to do videos. You got to do podcasts. So I believe that if you are trying to build your personal brand and personal media company, one, it's not easy, but that's the thing. Like, when you do this and you do this really well, you could have a very big, successful company and be set in your career for many, many years to come. You could command higher prices. You could have a multi-million-dollar business. People want to work with you. Like, that's the benefits of what it is that happens when you do reach that guru status in your business, or that guru's guru status in your business. You bring the best talent. You could command higher fees. It's a great place to be in. At the same time, it's by no means easy. It does require originality. It does require a lot of like sucking and embarrassing and failing and stuff that doesn't work, and a lot of that like grinding aspect of it, like that's there. So I always preface it with that's great that you want to do that. Everybody wants to do that because it is a very valuable thing to have when you do it successfully, but it's really hard.
Going to like the perfect practice thing. I mean, I've seen a lot of people try this. Like they start, they're consistent and it flops, and I feel like there is some sort of it factor, or is it just that they're misaligned with like what content people actually want to engage with, or is it how they're taking the video? Like when you see this happen, what advice would you give someone who's just like flopping?
It's like with where things are right now, it's a lot more sophisticated than where things were a few years ago, where it was much more novel to just be on TikTok or create short videos. Now, it feels like almost everybody's doing it. You want to be in a place where you figure out like a format for what it is that you do. Kind of like your own show, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And then adding elements to the show as you want to refine it and make it better. Because that's what you're looking for, is you're essentially kind of taking terms from TV land, is that you're piloting a lot of different show formats, and you're seeing what is the best container for what it is that you're doing, and you're modifying it as you get the feedback for it. And you get to see all the other people and all the different shows that they're creating. So it is a lot of that in the beginning. And then once you have what it is that you're doing that starts to get people to resonate with you, that's your feedback to do more of that. So you got to look for these signals. So if you're flopping, it's about looking in either your niche as well as adjacent niches, other niches altogether, to see what kind of formats they're using, and then adapting that to what it is that you're doing, and then testing that out.
So like you mentioned, this takes a lot of time, a lot of energy. There's probably some additional costs and resources involved. At what point do you start to see the ROI? How do you measure that? I see people putting in all this time and energy. They get frustrated. They don't see the growth in audience. They can't measure it like they can a click through or a form fill or something. What's your advice there?
Yeah, that's a super good question, because that is the biggest challenge with organic social. And I had this problem, especially early on in my business, as I was working with different clients, of essentially articulating the value that you get from social media. And over time, my business advisor and I came up with this concept. We call it ROAC, return on attention created. And it's really a way to diagnose your content to know if it's working or not. And there's a variety of different things and components that go into it, but I'll share a couple of them with you. So one is that you're looking at content at the content level, and then you're also looking at it at a channel level. On a content level, your goal is really to understand how attention works. And attention has these layers to it. So when you create content, it reaches people, they see it, they're exposed to it. And then if you have the right kind of packaging with the content, it registers in their brain, and they're like, oh yeah, this is meaningful to me. And then the conversation becomes about retention. Are they getting whatever it is that they're interested in? They're expecting the value that you promised them. And then there's a resonate factor. Like, is it actually resonating with them? And then there's a reinforcement factor. Is what you gave them something that satiated them? Did it give them value? If it did, it's now going to create this mental shortcut in their mind that anytime they see you, they want to watch more of you. Right? So these are like the mechanisms that exist in a human brain when they're watching through content. And when you diagnose your content in that way, it allows you to understand audience behavior. Because at the end of the day, it's not an algorithm, it's audiences and how they behave and use these platforms. So as you go through that process, you start to learn and you start to get all of that insight, right? So that's the attention creation part of return on attention created. Then the other part is the return side. It's what is that attention actually producing? So now when we're looking at that, it's ROAC is the path to an ROI, and it doesn't happen immediately. It happens over time. And during that period of time, a lot of different things are occurring. One is that you're building trust. Trust in itself is a very valuable thing. Companies invest a lot of money over the years in PR to get their brand placed in certain articles just so that they could be associated with all of this brand value. Whereas today, you have control over your own narrative. So as you're creating content, you're essentially establishing trust. That trust will appear in the comment section. It will appear in DMs. It will appear as social value. It will appear as people validating what you're talking about. It will appear as authority, where another authoritative figure brings you on a podcast or references you in one of their articles, or you get cited in an LLM. So now all of a sudden you're building trust into the world. And then as that starts to happen, there's intent that occurs. That intent shows up in DMs of, hey, I'm interested in what you have to offer. Or you have a many chat sequence and people are starting to comment, hey, I want that free thing that you offered. Or, hey, I want to book a call with you. So you start to see that intent value. And then over time, you start to see revenue. You start to see actual deals that occur. You actually see proposals that you're sending out, things that you're closing, partnerships, allowing you to charge more. These are things that are hard to measure in like a straight, I'm just going to look at it on the dashboard kind of thing. These are things that you got to manually collect and put together in what I call a scorecard, so that you're seeing this over time, week over week, month over month. And then all of a sudden, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, you start to see the monetary value from it. So it's a process, but that's kind of what I'm articulating here is the building of a brand, which is a mental association. So you do need this method in order to articulate this mental association that is occurring with mass amounts of people.
Yeah, totally agree. There's this, obviously this qualitative feeling of growing an audience and getting more viewers, and you know deep down there's a lot of value there, but there's always going to be that point where you've got to justify the expense and the energy that's going into it, and how do you tie it back? And having that strategy, having those scorecards, just like anything else, it's, you need a dashboard to help illustrate these things. So you've been at this for a long time, and you were doing this long before AI was available. What's changed in the last couple of years in terms of your process, your production process, or even your content planning and scheduling? What areas has AI really helped you create some efficiencies in what you're doing for some of your clients?
I would say the biggest part, aside from like the tactical things, we try not to automate. We don't automate a lot of things. Some things are done manually on purpose. Where I have leveraged AI in the best capacity for myself is turbocharging my brain power. And it allows me to work with people that are world-class experts that have spent decades in their fields. And AI has allowed me to meet them at their level. And that's something that's rare that they don't come across. Not even from their own teams. Almost always, any expert that I meet, they don't have people on their teams don't understand them to the level that they want to be understood. And I understand them. And AI has allowed me to do that. It's become a thinking partner that helps me get what they want to convey and articulate, and then help them package that in a way that allows other people to understand them. And that's a beautiful thing, because at the end of the day, everybody is really just trying to be understood.
That's so important. And I think your sales background probably helps in that, because just like if I'm about to set up a first call with a client or a prospect, the ability to leverage AI to research and, like you said, get to their level in terms of their product, their services, that whole industry that you may not have a lot of experience with. That's a huge advantage now. That's how I feel like I'm using AI more than anything, is just to get smarter about the topic.
Yeah, totally.
And it's not so much about automation and operational efficiencies as it is just, the 2.0 version of yourself.
Totally. I love that. That's exactly. I think you said it best right there. It is like the 2.0 version of yourself. And that in itself is really fun and exciting. I know there's a lot of like clawbot and automation and get rich. And I feel like a lot of that's noise. A lot of that's distracting a lot of people. And I think how you put it, and that it allows you to become a 2.0 version or a 3.0 version of yourself, is probably the best way to take advantage of it right now.
Well, AJ, there's a lot of, the AI side though of creative, and I'm working with brands and hearing consistently like influencers are going away from accepting free products. Every influencer now wants cash for their video. Not always easy to work with. Maybe they're slow. They don't really represent the brand in the right light, or the product, they don't say the right things. And some of that maybe is influencer management, but a lot of brands are getting really frustrated with the cost of influencers. And so they're turning to AI to have these influencer type UGC type videos. I know that's a little different, but like most influencers, right? Their goal is to create a brand. So do you see that where you're like, so much is saturated now with these influencers that people are going to be turning to AI to replace them?
That's a really good point. I'm really glad you brought that up, because that is a thing that's happening in the space, especially with brands. And I think it's the wrong move to try to create AI influencers. I do understand the problem that's there because of how creators are and what they're trying to accomplish. I think the game has gotten a lot more sophisticated, and the creators need to bring a different level of value to these conversations, so that it's not just, hey, you're paying for my followers kind of thing, which I think is kind of the thing that's happening. I'll share with you some insight that I got from, I think it's one of the marketing guys at ClickUp is talking about, which I think is going to make its way across the landscape, which is some companies are starting to hire unemployed actors and actresses in LA and in New York.
Wow.
And it's working extremely well for them. ClickUp, you could see this is public information they talk about in different places, that they're crushing it. They're getting hundreds of millions of views with their content, and they're hiring unemployed actors and actresses, comedians. They're going to improv schools. So they're recruiting people that are from traditional Hollywood because they don't have any work and they're desperate for work to do. And they're getting them at really great rates. And they're not dealing with the ego or the challenges that often come with somebody saying, I want $10,000 for this video or $20,000 for this one video, and I'm going to just use ChatGPT to create a script for it. So now they're building in-house teams. And what we're seeing across the board is that, and I'm getting more inquiries and consulting clients on that as well, which is building in-house studios. Like with my company, Limitless Company, I essentially created a studio system, which is a end-to-end content creation systems, from coming up with ideas, scripting, producing, filming, editing, posting, analyzing, driving business results, and then repeating that day in and day out. And more companies are now wanting to bring that in-house, including talent. They want to also manage talent in-house. So that's why it makes so much sense for these companies to start recruiting actors and actresses, comedians, even doing writers' rooms, right? Like, this is something I started doing 4 or 5 years ago, where I was kind of seeing that convergence happening. Is I started hosting writers' rooms for my clients, where we would have these meetings, come up with all these sorts of great ideas. And I'd bring on comedians as well into the conversation, because they knew how to write jokes and things like that. So I think that is where we're going to go. I think AI influencers, fake influencers, we're going to see a shit ton of it. Will it work? Probably not for most people. I think we're going to see the human side of it work really, really well for the brands that are smart enough to build this in-house studio and hire really good talent and create a fun environment for them to showcase what they're doing in a non like direct way, in a more fun, engaging way.
I love that. Like original YouTubers, if they took any paid endorsements, they would lose all their followers, right? And so like now everybody just expects it, but you're seeing these constant shifts. And so right now you see a lot of major companies using AI to make commercials, like the Super Bowl commercials, Svedka, vodka looking at you, right? Like,
yeah.
And it was just like so bad. Everybody knew it was bad. I think we're going to start seeing a shift back where people are like, no, we want to see real content, and we don't really care if we're being sold to. We want real people. I don't know.
Yeah, the soul, right? Like even that, I'm actually working with Neil on a video about this very topic, how creativity and AI basically gets people, like now that we could create content that looks like Pixar, $100 million budget Pixar movies, like with a few strokes on a keyboard, everybody has that capability, and it all like averages out, and it makes you lost in noise. Like Coca-Cola did a commercial for Christmas, I think, that was purely
Yeah.
AI, and people hated it, and it had like a negative impact on their brand. So the human side of it, the soul side of it, as we get hyper AI mode, I think is what people are going to gravitate towards and yearn for.
Yeah. Yep, I agree. And I say it a lot, people buy from people. They want to see, touch, feel. I see the event world right now picking up a lot of momentum just because people, want that human interaction. So I think you're right. If anything, it's going to help connect more humans than to alienate them, right?
Yeah, that human to human.
So you've got a couple of books out, right? So tell us more about what led to you writing a book, and what's that experience been like, and what are these books about, so people can go pick them up.
Yeah, I have a book that just came out called Guru Inc. And it's essentially about what we talked about, that we're all in this place where we're building a brand around ourselves. And I go through some of these experiences that I went through and talked about the insights that I learned in a way that a reader will gain those insights as well, and seeing and navigating the world that we live in. A lot of what I feel like I've brought to the table in many conversations is my perspective. And I have this really unique perspective of the digital world. And a lot of clients bring me on because I'm helping to navigate through it, whether in all the different aspects of it. And that's what I essentially instilled into this book, is to provide you with that unique perspective, so then you could start to see things through that lens and make better decisions as you're building your media company. So it's like, the premise of it is that it's not just about being the best at what it is that you do. It's about getting people to see you being the best at what you do.
Mm.
There's a lot of talented people that are secret,
Yeah.
right? So it's like, how long do you want to be your industry's best kept secret? My job is to help fix that.
Right.
And that's what the book's going to do.
Well, I'm excited. It's in my Amazon cart. I'm definitely going to get it. And does it walk people through, if this is something they're interested in, like here's the steps to achieve it?
Yeah, it'll take you through a step-by-step plan, and you'll start to get an understanding of what it is to look like, what it looks like to build a business around yourself, and work your way through that, up that guru ladder.
Awesome. Well, AJ, this has been really informative, and I think our listeners are really going to get a lot of value. I hear a lot about building a personal brand and that you should do it, but not really the action steps to achieve it. So thank you for sharing your tips and tricks. The point of this podcast is to lift up marketers. Who would you like to lift up today?
My old business partner, Hoeft and Patel, think should definitely be more visible. He's doing some really amazing things. I know he's building his businesses and doing just a phenomenal job. I think more people need to, he needs to share more of his wisdom and knowledge, and more people should listen to him.
How can we follow him?
I think you can check out sujanpatel.com for him.
Awesome. And how can people follow you? I saw you have Instagram and you're posting some really great tips and tricks. So tell us your handle and other ways that people can contact you.
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram, AJ the Digital Maestro. You can check me out on LinkedIn. I'm posting a lot more content on there recently. That's AJ Kumar 24, or you can just type my name, AJ Kumar. And then my book, you can get that on Amazon, Guru Inc.
Awesome.
No, just really appreciate the time. And I know that you're doing more on LinkedIn. So I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that. What's your experience been, having been on these other platforms for so long and now kind of doubling down on LinkedIn?
It's I think there's a great opportunity. It'd be great to create videos, but at the same time, even if you create text content, I think a lot of what you need now today is not just regurgitating ChatGPT content, but creating content through your perspective. So if you could get better at being able to share your personal insights from your experiences, I find that kind of stuff works really well, and to do it multiple times a day, Not everything's going to hit, but then you start to get momentum. And then 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, all of a sudden you get all of this action and activity. Just like
And
any platform essentially, but LinkedIn is just a place where you already have a lot of connections that are probably there of people that are very business oriented as well. So it's a great context, and it's more and more people are going there. It's becoming really active.
so AJ, something I saw that you posted on Instagram was that also if you're just saying the same thing, like if you're not vocalizing something a little opinionated, then you're also just going to fall flat too. And so would you recommend that on LinkedIn as well?
Yeah, I mean, and that's the goal, is as you're working your way up the guru ladder, is that the weight of your opinion becomes stronger. So I think it's important to have that unique perspective, that personal insight, your way of how you see things. And as you share that more and more and more, that starts to have more and more weight. And that's ultimately what leads to more people wanting your opinion and wanting you to recommend things and paying you for those recommendations.
That's great advice.
Yeah, this has been great, AJ. It's a pleasure reconnecting with you and hearing what you're up to, and I'm really excited for where you're headed. I think this topic and the convergence of entertainment, like you said, and the hiring of actors and comedians to help you get there, and just like you started out with, the working in the media and entertainment business and kind of bringing them together. I like that path.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. I loved your questions, and it was a really great experience.
Thanks for joining the LiftKit Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, John Hoeft, founder of LiftKit Marketing, a consultancy dedicated to supporting agencies and marketers with their digital growth strategies.
And I'm the co-host, Danielle Schermerhorn, a former agency owner and current e-commerce specialist with deep experience across both brand and agency sides of the marketing world.
Each week, we'll bring you conversations with marketing professionals who are doing great work, whether they're leading teams, building campaigns, launching products, or just figuring it out behind the scenes.
Our guests will share their personal journeys, the real stories behind their success, the challenges they faced, and the wins they're most proud of. We'll also hear what's next for them and what they see on the horizon for the industry.
At LiftKit Marketing, we believe in celebrating people, recognizing great work, and lifting up those who are making an impact. Thanks for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed the episode.